What I'm going to show you is how to turn your elastic into a loop. So you guys have one. I just wanted to show you that it was these little things, the black and the white. So I'm going to use the white to show you. And it's not too crazy. So the loop that we're making a loop and it's going to hold our button. Let me show you the example that I did before. So this is what we're working on today, the little loop. Now, I always, especially because this was a new project for my class, I always like to make an example before you guys have to do it, because then I get to run into the problems. I get to see what doesn't work or what's too hard. So if you look at mine, super messy. I didn't like how I had tried and started it and ended up not working out. So we're going to do something different. But yeah, that's how, trial and error, figure out from your mistakes. But this is the basic concept. So if you look at this one right there, all we're doing is just attaching the loop to the top of your pencil case. Now, what you'll notice, or I forget, let me get the chat up. What you'll notice is I'm sewing it on, but you don't see it on the other side. I'm like just grabbing some of this black fabric as I sew. So not enough to go all the way through, but just enough to catch it so that way this isn't sliding around. So I'm going to show you that right now. You will need your buttons. So I have two examples. You need your button to size your loop, and I'll explain why right now. So here's two different buttons. When you get your elastic, all you're doing is putting the two ends right on top, like a sandwich. Right on top of each other. And that is what's going to make your loop. So when you first get the two ends together and you pinch them together, it makes a really, really wide and big loop. Now, this is way too big. Not too bad, but this matters. The size of the loop that you make matters, and I'll show you why. Here's my example, I made before we started. And if I get my elastic, and I know you guys are like, Miss Artunda, use both hands. Stop being weird. And the reason why I just use one hand is the elastic won't stay on. It doesn't want to stay on the button. It keeps sliding off. If I use two hands and I really force that elastic, and I lift the button and I try to shove that elastic behind, it still wants to come off. It still wants to come apart. The reason why, this loop, way too big for the button, just way too big. What you're trying to do is you want the bottom of the loop and the top of the button. So if I had made this a little bit smaller, let's say I did it something like this. So the bottom of the loop, kind of top of the button. If I had made this a little bit smaller, because don't forget, this is elastic. This can stretch really, really wide. So you want to get it pretty snug. I could have stretched it. And because that was smaller, or even smaller than what I was thinking, it'll stay because it's forcing it. It's super tight. It's the tension of the elastic against the button. That's what we want. So even though getting the two ends, putting them right on top, even though this would fit my giant button, I actually want it to be a little bit smaller. And I'm measuring the bottom of the loop to the top of the button. So I would move it a little bit even more. bottom of the loop, top of the bun. That's how big, because this will open up, this will stretch to fit the bun. Think about your jeans. When you have jean pants or jean jacket, the button is big and that little slit in the jeans, very small. Like you have to like shove that thing in sometimes. If your button's tiny, same thing. You don't want this big gap. So the bottom of the loop, and then you're going to measure to the top of the button. And I know this seems so tiny, like Miss A, it's not going to fit. It will. You definitely want it to be snug. It'll stretch. So bottom of the button, bottom of the loop, top of the button. So I'm going to use this one. Let me measure again. Also, you want to mark it. No one's going to see this part. So don't worry if you use a marker or a pen. So I'm lining up my edges. Right there. That's pretty good. In there. And I do both sides just in case they move around on me. So now I have, just to remind myself where it's going to go. So when that's sewn, bottom of the loop, top of the bun. Perfect. Kick rocks button. Just like before, we always have to worry about hiding that ugly fly knot. That's always going to be the case. It's up to you how you want to. You could either do an elastic sandwich. So you put it in between your elastic. I just put it in the back. No one's going to see it. So I'm lining up my two little lines, making sure they're in the right spot. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to push my needle through from the back. And I'm going to go a little bit above where I marked it. I want to go a little bit above. It's me. Okay. So from the back, a little bit above. So here's my pencil mark. A little bit above there. A little bit above. And I'm just going to pull my needle all the way through. I just want to hide that ugly fly knot. So now, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to trim off this excess elastic. And some of you might be thinking, well, like, I know we're going to sew this, so I need something to hold. You have this side of your loop, and also we're about to attach it onto our pencil case. So it's just gonna, if you leave it on, it'll be harder to trim later. It's up to you, you know, pick your poison. I'm gonna trim it now, so that way I don't have to worry about it. Same thing, where my thread is coming out, I'm gonna go a little bit past it. I'm still gonna give myself a little bit of a tail. It's just not so much of a tail. Now, I'm going to find the middle as best I can. Because again, I can tell it's like slightly off. Like my center isn't, like this one's slightly bigger than this one. Doesn't matter. It's just me. So I'm looking at my middle row column. I'm just going to kind of go up as best I can. I'll attach or lay down my little loop. And what you'll notice, you see how where I'm placing it, I have almost like where that pencil mark is, I have it below the edge, below the top. Because no one's going to see on this inside. Well, I guess, you know, if you have one of those friends that just loves to pick apart your work. But it's going to go far below. So when it's closed, you're not going to see that part. So I kind of like line up my pencil area almost like by the stitches that I made. That's kind of where I lined it up. So it has, because don't forget, this can stretch again for your button. Now I'm going to show you on paper first what we're going to do. Disregard my earlier drawing. Right now, I have my loop and my ugly fly knot's in the back. It's behind my elastic. And all I'm going to do is lay my thread on top. Then I'm going to grab some fabric from underneath and go around. And you're just doing this motion. So basically it's slowly just going to be this. You're just wrapping and wrapping and wrapping. Every time you go underneath, grab some of that black fabric. Lay it on top, grab some of that black fabric. So we're never really going through the elastic. We're going to do that one more time at the end. But right now, it's just wrapping, wrapping, wrapping. So I'll show you. And I like hip hop wrapping. In the middle, yep, not too bad. This is usually when I'll bust out a paper clip or a bobby pin, because I know it's going to get crazy real quick. Real quick. You just need something to hold it just for a little while, just until you get it like semi-attached. Just kind of leave that there. If I can zoom in a little bit better. Here's my thread coming on my elastic. Ooh, that's horrible. Underneath, I have that fly knot. We're trying to hide it. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to get my needle. I'm going underneath my elastic. I'm going to go underneath it. I'm going to grab some of that black fabric. I want you to see, I'm not coming out the other side. There's no needle. And if I pull up my little elastic, you can see I grabbed a little bit of that black fabric. No. It's all fun and games until your project falls off. Doo, doo, doo. Oh, I know what I'm doing wrong. My fingers are in the way. Okay. So I grabbed a little bit of the black fabric, pulling my needle through. This is really the time to watch out for knots. And you can just see that little thread. So it's just starting out. And I'm just going to keep doing that. I'm going to lay my thread over. And then move the ugly fly knot just and out of the way. Get in my thread, lay it over my elastic. My needle goes underneath. Grab some fabric. This ugly fly knot like wants to be in the show. Calmate. There we go. And then I pull. And you're gonna do this a few times. You're just gonna keep going around and around. So I can even like take off my paper clip now because it has those first couple holding it. Grab some fabric. Again, going through, not going through the other side. And you'll feel it. You know, don't forget, like there's space between the black fabric and your quilt. So you'll feel it. Don't worry about like, oh, what if I, you know, don't pull your needle all the way through if you're worried. Make sure that you're not going through the other side before you pull it. So I've done it a few times, and what you'll notice is, see how like wobbly it is? I got to go a few more times. And this is something that you'll notice when we do the button as well. You kind of just keep going through. And once it starts getting snug, then you know you're close to being done. That's why I don't tell you guys to get less thread. I'm not sure how much you'll need. You might need the arm length. You might need just a little bit. I just keep pulling it snug. Snug, snug, snug. And then you just kind of do a check. The top of your loop is always going to be, you know, movable, but you want to check the bottom. Like, does it pull? Is it still kind of wobbly? You know, maybe I need to go up a little bit further. Grab some fabric. Okay, so that feels snug. Down here, it's not moving. It feels pretty tight. Pretty tight. Now I'm gonna start ending it. I'm going to finally like finish that knot. It's the same knot we've always done, but I'm gonna go through the elastic one more time. Kind of like what we did in the beginning with the ugly fly knot. I'm gonna go through one more time. So here I am. My thread's coming out on the right. I'm gonna go from the back to the top. So same thing, just kind of underneath both elastics, trying to just like kind of get in the middle as best I can. So I just went from the back, got a little bit of fabric in that, that's fine. Coming out through both elastics. Now it's going to be the same knot we've always done throughout this project. All I'm going to do, I'm coming out here in the middle of the elastic. And I'm just going to grab some of the thread here on the side. Somewhere on the side. I'm just going to get my needle, go underneath a few of these bands of thread. Again, trying not to stab myself. Don't stab yourself. So I'm just sliding it, you know, on the side where all that thread is. Same thing, just like before. I pull the needle through. It gives me this loop. That's what I want. Needle through the loop, pull tight, tight, tight. And I'll do that one more time. Go from the side. Here's my loop. Needle goes through the loop. And I pull. Now you trim. Again, be very careful when you trim off your thread. I would much rather you guys have this little tail that sticks off than you cut it too short and then you have to do it all over again. Now, let's say you trim it and you're like, it still feels loose. Do some more. Start again. Put the ugly fly knot back here and then go again. Maybe you want it to be a little bit higher, a little bit snugger here at the top. That's fine too. Like I was telling first period as well. No one's really going to see the inside because again, this is going to be the inside of your case. All you want to make sure is make sure that your loop isn't too big. You know, measure from the bottom of the loop to the top of your button. And make sure that when you sew it, you're not going through your pencil case. You know, I don't want to say that this can be a hot mess, but sometimes it happens. You know, you're trying to grab some of the fabric, you're going around. Knots tend to happen a lot too. And really, you're just securing it. So when you pull on it because of the button, it's not going to come apart. So that is the biggest goal. One, make sure the loop's not too big. And two, when you attach it, don't go all the way through. And really, that's all you're doing. You're just going around and around, just kind of getting it snug, snug, snug.